Some fixes save the day. Others make you wish the problem was never touched at all. America's full of people who see "do not try this" as a personal challenge, and this is what happens next. Get ready for 101 true stories of confidence colliding with consequences. 1. Boston had a leaky tank of industrial molasses. The company's genius fix wasn't to repair the leak, but to paint the tank brown to hide the stains. In 1919, this brilliant patch job failed, unleashing a 25-foot-tall wave of syrup that moved at 35 miles per hour, destroying a neighborhood. 2. To get rid of a dead whale that washed ashore in Oregon, the Highway Division decided the most logical solution was dynamite. They figured it would vaporize into tiny, digestible bits for seagulls. Instead, it rained massive, rotting chunks of blubber down on the town, crushing a car and traumatizing everyone. 3. To solve the problem of engine knock, a General Motors scientist added lead to gasoline. It worked like a charm, making engines run smoother. The only minor side effect was blanketing the entire country in a toxic neurotoxin for decades, poisoning the air and literally lowering people's IQs. 4. Centralia, Pennsylvania, wanted to clean up its landfill. Their chosen method in 1962 was to simply set the trash on fire. Unfortunately, the dump sat on top of an abandoned coal mine seam, which ignited. The fire is still burning underground today, having turned the entire town into a toxic ghost town. 5. To combat pesky mosquitoes and other bugs, America fell in love with the chemical DDT. They sprayed it on everything from public pools to crops, with pure abandon. It killed the bugs, but it also nearly drove the bald eagle to extinction and poisoned the entire food chain for generations. 6. In the early 20th century, the problem was fire safety. The miracle solution was asbestos. They put this wonder material in schools, homes, and ships to make them fireproof. The only tiny flaw in this otherwise perfect plan? It also gives you a slow, agonizing lung cancer. Whoops. 7. To create farmland in the Florida Everglades, engineers dug a massive network of canals to drain the swamps. This fix not only destroyed a unique ecosystem but also caused the ground to sink, paradoxically making the new farmland more prone to the very flooding they tried to prevent. 8. Lake Penieur, Louisiana had a stuck drill. The fix was to reposition and keep drilling. They punched into a salt mine under the lake, and the whole thing drained like a bathtub. Barges, trees, even part of the shoreline were swallowed as the waterfall reversed direction. A minor problem turned into a man-made whirlpool from hell. 9. To fix society's moral failings, the US government passed prohibition, banning alcohol. The intended result was a sober paradise. The actual result was the rise of organized crime, Al Capone, violent gang wars, and people drinking dangerous moonshine made in bathtubs. A stunning success. 10. To control an invasive aquatic weed problem, Louisiana officials introduced the nutria, a giant South American swamp rat. The nutria happily ate the weeds and then proceeded to eat the roots of every other native plant, completely destroying the coastal wetlands and becoming a far worse pest. 11. To fight soil erosion. In the 1930s, the US government imported a Japanese vine called kudzu. It worked a little too well. The vine that ate the South grew so aggressively that it swallowed entire forests, abandoned cars, and even houses, creating a far bigger problem than a little loose dirt. 12. To fix the problem of traffic congestion in major cities after World War II, urban planners had a brilliant idea: build massive interstate highways directly through the center of them. This didn't reduce traffic. It just destroyed vibrant neighborhoods and created even more gridlock. 13. A Florida man wanted to get rid of a stubborn stump in his yard. Instead of digging it out, he packed it with dynamite. The resulting explosion not only vaporized the stump, but also blew out every window in his house and his neighbors' houses for a 2-block radius. Problem solved, I guess? 14. To fix their bland diets, 19th century Americans decided to import European starlings, believing they were more sophisticated than native birds. The birds adapted beautifully, forming massive, aggressive flocks that drive out native species and cover entire cities in corrosive droppings. 15. To save the trees, we replaced paper grocery bags with a supposedly better solution: plastic. A fantastic fix, except we now have a permanent global pollution crisis, with immortal plastic bags choking wildlife and forming literal continents of garbage in our oceans. Great trade. 16. In the 1950s, doctors thought the best way to cure mental illnesses like anxiety was a lobotomy. The procedure involved sticking an ice pick through the patient's eye socket to scramble their brain's frontal lobe. It did stop the anxiety, mainly by turning the person into a passive, emotionless vegetable. 17. To deal with a growing fire ant problem, authorities drenched the South with a pesticide called Mirex. It killed some fire ants, but it also wiped out the native ants that competed with them. The more resilient fire ants came back with a vengeance, now with no natural rivals to slow them down. 18. When American engineers tried to tame the Mississippi River, they built a huge system of levees to prevent flooding. This fix actually made floods worse by creating a faster, deeper channel. Now, when the levees inevitably break, the resulting floods are far more catastrophic than they ever were naturally. 19. A town was overrun with pigeons. One resident decided to solve the problem by scaring them away with a single firecracker. He lit it, tossed it into the flock, and watched as the terrified birds flew directly into a set of high-voltage power lines, causing a massive power outage for the entire town. 20. To make refrigerators and air conditioners safer, a scientist at General Motors invented Freon, a non-toxic, non-flammable gas. It was a miracle of modern chemistry that had only one tiny, insignificant side effect. It was systematically destroying the Earth's ozone layer. 21. America tried to scare teens straight, literally. The DARE program marched kids through lectures and mascot pep rallies to fix drug use. Studies later found it had little to no effect, sometimes even boosting curiosity. Millions spent, endless assemblies, and the behavior it targeted barely budged. Fear isn't a strategy, it's a slogan. 22. In a desperate attempt to compete with Pepsi, Coca-Cola decided to fix its century-old secret formula. The result was New Coke, a product so universally hated that it sparked nationwide protests. They fixed something that wasn't broken and created one of the biggest marketing disasters in history. 23. Worried about children getting splinters from wooden playground equipment, schools across America replaced it with safer plastic slides and structures. This new equipment gets dangerously hot in the sun, delivering second-degree burns, and generates enough static electricity to shock a kid into the next dimension. 24. To stop drivers from speeding on a residential street, some genius installed a speed bump that was more like a small mountain. It didn't just slow cars down, it launched them into the air, causing drivers to lose control and crash, while also ripping the oil pans off any car that dared to go the speed limit. 25. A farmer in Kansas was having trouble with prairie dogs. His solution was to pump propane gas into their tunnel network and then light it. He successfully eliminated the prairie dogs, but also created a chain reaction of explosions that collapsed his field and destroyed his irrigation system. 26. The problem was simple. Catfish farms had an algae problem. The solution? Import Asian carp to eat it. The carp not only escaped into the Mississippi River system, but are now outcompeting native fish and literally jumping into boats, creating a full-blown ecological disaster. 27. Picture this. It's a frigid winter in Ohio, and your pipes are frozen solid. Do you call a plumber? Of course not. One homeowner decided the quickest fix was a blowtorch. He successfully thawed about 6 inches of pipe before the surrounding wall insulation caught fire and burned his house to the ground. 28. During the Cold War, America had a problem: how to dig big things like harbors and canals quickly. Their proposed solution was Project Plowshare, a plan to use nuclear bombs for civil engineering. Thankfully, they never nuked a coastline, but they did detonate several bombs underground just to see what would happen. 29. A man in Florida had spilled some gasoline in his garage. His tool of choice to clean it up? A shop vacuum. He didn't consider that an electric motor plus flammable fumes creates a very effective bomb. The resulting explosion blew the garage door clean across the street. 30. The US government wanted to fix a struggling auto industry. Their idea was the Cash for Clunkers program. The fatal flaw was requiring the trade-in cars to be destroyed, which wiped out the entire market for affordable used vehicles, hurting the very low-income people who rely on them most. 31. A homeowner saw a massive wasp nest hanging from his porch. His brilliant idea for removal didn't involve an expert, just a baseball bat. The wasps, whose home he had just violently destroyed, were not amused and responded with a coordinated multi-stinger counterattack that sent him to the hospital. 32. Engineers in the early 1900s had a grand vision: irrigate the California desert. They made one tiny miscalculation while digging a canal. This oops moment diverted the entire Colorado River into a dry basin for 2 years, accidentally creating the massive, salty, and now dying environmental catastrophe known as the Salton Sea. 33. The problem: one tiny spider in a laundry room. The solution, according to one Kansas man, a can of aerosol spray and a lighter. He successfully incinerated the spider, but also set his clothes, the wall, and eventually his entire apartment complex on fire, causing a multi-million-dollar blaze. 34. America had a forest fire problem. So they created Smokey Bear, whose message was so effective that it stopped all fires, including the small, natural ones that clear out dead vegetation. The result? Decades of fuel buildup, which now feeds the uncontrollable megafires we see today. 35. A driver's muffler was hanging loose. His fix wasn't a trip to the shop, it was half a roll of duct tape. It held for exactly 10 miles on the highway before melting through, dropping the hot exhaust system on the road and causing a 3-car pileup directly behind him. 36. To fight the problem of invasive beetles, the USDA released a parasitic fly called the taconid fly. The fly completely ignored the target beetle and instead chose to prey on over 200 species of Native American moths and butterflies, wiping out several beautiful local species in the process. 37. Tired of a pothole on his street, a man in Detroit took matters into his own hands with a bag of quick-set concrete. He didn't level it correctly, creating a permanent, rock-hard lump that was 10 times more of a hazard than the original hole. Basically a concrete landmine for car suspensions. 38. America had a drug problem. The government's solution was to declare a literal war on them. This didn't fix addiction. It created mandatory minimum sentences, exploded the prison population, militarized the police, and cost trillions, all while the original problem continued. 39. An office worker spilled a soda on their keyboard. Their immediate fix for the sticky keys? Taking it to the break room and washing it thoroughly with soap and water. They successfully removed the soda, along with any and all ability for the keyboard to ever function as an electronic device again. 40. The problem was a shortage of game birds for hunting. The fix? Import pheasants from Asia. While popular with hunters, these aggressive birds have pushed out native species like prairie chickens and quail, completely altering the local ecosystems just so people had something new to shoot at. 41. The Great Plains had a problem: tough native grasses that were hard to farm. The fix? Plow it all under for wheat. This worked great until the first major drought hit, at which point the unprotected topsoil blew away, creating the Dust Bowl, the single worst man-made ecological disaster in U.S. history. 42. Starting a bonfire with damp wood is slow. One man's quick fix was a generous splash of gasoline. The resulting fireball not only singed off his eyebrows but also ignited his nearby shed, proving that patience is, in fact, a virtue he did not possess. 43. In the 1920s, the problem was telling time in the dark. The U.S. Radium Corporation's glowing solution was to have women paint watch dials with radium, even telling them to lick the brushes for a finer point. The fix worked, right up until their jaws began to literally rot off their faces. 44. A driver had a flat tire but no spare. His ingenious fix? Filling the entire tire with expanding construction foam. It held its shape for about 3 blocks before the friction caused it to melt and then harden into a lumpy, unbalanced mess that nearly ripped the wheel clean off the car. 45. America had an issue with teen delinquency. The fix dramatized on TV was the Scared Straight program. The idea that a terrifying prison visit would scare kids away from crime actually made them more likely to reoffend, essentially serving as a networking event for future criminals. 46. You have wet socks and you're in a hurry. The obvious, logical solution? Pop them in the microwave for a quick dry. This was one person's master plan, right up until the synthetic fibers caught fire, filling their kitchen with toxic smoke and leaving them with no socks and a ruined appliance. 47. Ranchers had a problem. Wolves were eating their livestock. The government's fix was to exterminate nearly every wolf in Yellowstone. With no predators, the elk population exploded, ate all the vegetation, and nearly destroyed the entire ecosystem. The fix was so bad, they had to reintroduce the wolves decades later. 48. A family had a squirrel trapped in their chimney. Instead of calling animal control, their fix was to light a fire to smoke it out. The squirrel, which had built a massive nest of dry leaves, was smoked out along with half the living room as the entire chimney flue went up in flames. 49. Engineers in the 1940s wanted a sleeker, more elegant bridge design. Their fix was the Tacoma Narrows Bridge. They achieved elegance but completely forgot about aerodynamics. The bridge twisted violently in the wind, earning the name Galloping Gertie right before it spectacularly tore itself apart. 50. A man wanted to strip old paint off his historic home. The slow method was sanding. His faster fix? A propane torch. He successfully stripped about 3 square feet of paint before the 100-year-old wood siding caught fire, efficiently stripping the entire house down to its foundation. 51. The U.S. Department of Agriculture had a problem. Contaminated flax seeds imported from Russia. They didn't fix it. Inside was the Russian thistle, which becomes the iconic tumbleweed. It is now an invasive, fire-spreading, fence-destroying menace that plagues the entire American West. 52. You're hungry? You have a can of chili, but no can opener. One man's fix was a hammer and a screwdriver. He successfully punctured the can, but with so much force that the jagged lid sliced his hand open, sending him to the emergency room for stitches instead of to the dinner table. 53. The state of Georgia had a wild pig problem. Their big idea was to offer a cash bounty for every pigtail turned in. What happened? Enterprising locals simply started breeding pigs in their backyards to cut off their tails for the bounty, dramatically increasing the overall pig population. 54. A homeowner decided a ladder was too much work to clear light snow off his roof. His clever fix was a high-powered leaf blower. He successfully cleared the snow, but the 200-mile-per-hour winds also got under the asphalt shingles and peeled half of them clean off his roof. 55. The problem in the 1970s was convenient birth control. A company offered the Dalcon Shield IUD as the ultimate fix. Unfortunately, its design acted as a wick for bacteria, causing horrific infections, infertility, and even death for thousands of women, leading to one of the largest medical lawsuits in history. 56. When a Texas man found a single armadillo digging in his yard, he didn't reach for a shovel. He reached for his .38 revolver. He fired, but the armadillo's shell, acting like a tiny organic bulletproof vest, ricocheted the round straight back into his own jaw. 57. Only in America could an effort to beautify highways lead to an invasive species crisis. To fix ugly roadsides, highway departments planted acres of crown vetch. It looked nice for a bit, before it escaped and started aggressively strangling every native plant in its path. 58. It's the stuff of sitcoms, but it actually happened. A family trying to get rid of a mouse in their kitchen had a brilliant idea. Corner it, then suck it up with a vacuum cleaner. It worked, right up until the terrified mouse chewed its way out of the bag and back into the house later that night. 59. The U.S. Army had a problem with its chemical weapons stockpile in the Pacific. Their disposal plan was the epitome of out of sight, out of mind. They just dumped thousands of tons of mustard gas and nerve agent barrels directly into the ocean. The barrels are now leaking, of course. 60. A tree stump in your yard is an eyesore. One Oregon man's fix involved tying a chain from the stump to his Ford F-250 and hitting the gas. The stump didn't move. The chain, however, snapped, whipped back, and shattered his truck's rear window with the force of a missile. 61. Sometimes a fix is so stupid it circles back to being almost genius. Faced with an ungodly amount of zebra mussels clogging a power plant's intake pipe, engineers coated the inside of the pipe with non-stick Teflon. The mussels couldn't cling, but it cost a fortune and had to be constantly reapplied. 62. You know that little check engine light everyone ignores? A man decided to fix his by putting a small piece of black electrical tape over it. He successfully solved the problem of the annoying light right up until his engine seized on the interstate from a catastrophic lack of oil. 63. To fix the problem of unruly Native American children, the U.S. government created a system of residential schools. The goal was to kill the Indian, save the man, by stripping them of their language and culture. The result was generations of trauma and abuse, a fix that broke countless lives. 64. A homeowner in Arizona had a beehive in his wall. His fix? He drilled a small hole and sprayed an entire can of insecticide inside. The bees died, but the now unattended honey melted in the desert heat, seeping through his drywall and attracting an even bigger army of ants and cockroaches. 65. New York City had a problem: too many cars and not enough highways. Robert Moses's solution was to build expressways that sliced through neighborhoods like the Bronx. One of his fixes was to deliberately build bridges over the parkways too low for public buses to pass, keeping poor communities out of his new parks. 66. Trying to fix a wobbly ceiling fan is a delicate job. One guy's approach was less delicate, more caveman with a hammer. He gave the wobbly bracket a gentle tap to knock it into place. The entire fan assembly promptly ripped out of the ceiling and crashed onto his coffee table below. 67. Here's a masterclass in agricultural failure. To combat pests, farmers started planting genetically identical high-yield crops. This monoculture was efficient until a single disease or pest that could beat the plant's defenses appeared, at which point it could wipe out the entire food supply. 68. Someone's car door was frozen shut. Their fix wasn't de-icer, it was a bucket of hot water. The door opened instantly. Then the water refroze within minutes, sealing the door, the lock, and the handle in a solid sheet of ice, making the problem 10 times worse. 69. The Army Corps of Engineers looked at the winding wild Kissimmee River in Florida and saw a problem. Their fix was to turn it into a straight, sterile 56-mile drainage canal. This destroyed the wetlands, killed 90% of the waterfowl, and was such a disaster they've spent the last 30 years trying to put the curves back. 70. A man wanted a perfectly level concrete patio. He poured the slab himself but realized it was sloped. His fix was to add another thin layer on top to even it out. This new layer never bonded to the first, and after one winter of freezing and thawing, it cracked into a million pieces. 71. Every Thanksgiving, a uniquely American tradition unfolds, attempting to deep fry a frozen turkey. This fix for a boring oven-roasted bird often results in a massive grease-fueled fireball that can incinerate a garage. At what point does plunging a block of ice into a vat of boiling oil sound like a good idea? 72. To fix the problem of urban slums, St. Louis built the future, the Pruitt-Igoe housing projects. But the award-winning design was so socially toxic that the buildings decayed into a vertical wasteland of crime. The final fix? Dynamiting the entire complex. How much of your tax money are you comfortable with them literally blowing up? 73. Your computer is running slow from dust. The fix is a can of compressed air. But if you hold it upside down, you don't get air. You get a jet of super-chilled liquid propellant that can freeze and crack your motherboard instantly. Be honest, how many of you had to learn this the hard way? 74. Hawaii had a major rat problem in its sugarcane fields. The brilliant fix was to import the mongoose. The only oversight was that rats are nocturnal, and mongooses are active during the day. So, they never met, and the mongooses just ate all the native ground-nesting birds instead. Did anyone bother to check what time of day these animals are actually awake? 75. In 1986, Cleveland tried a record-breaking charity stunt, release 1.5 million balloons at once. It looked magical for an hour. Then, the sky trash fell. Balloons clogged waterways, closed an airport runway, and hampered rescue crews. Turns out, release and forget isn't a fix, it's just litter with extra steps. 76. To fix its competitiveness problem in the 1970s, Ford designed the Pinto. To save $11 per car, they placed the gas tank in a spot where it would rupture and explode in a mild rear-end collision. They literally calculated that paying for burn victims was cheaper than fixing the design. What's the price tag you'd put on a human life to save a few bucks? 77. Fixing a faulty light switch seems like an easy 5-minute job. But for thousands of DIY heroes, this simple fix becomes a shocking experience when they forget to turn off the breaker, turning their screwdriver into a conduit for 120 volts of pure regret. Why do so many people think a YouTube tutorial makes them a certified electrician? 78. The US government wanted to fix America's diet, so they gave us the iconic food pyramid. This fix, heavily influenced by grain lobbyists, told everyone to eat 6 to 11 servings of carbs a day, helping fuel the obesity epidemic it was supposed to prevent. After that masterpiece, why would you ever trust a government diet plan again? 79. A raccoon gets trapped in a dumpster. A helpful citizen decides to fix the situation by giving the animal a ramp to climb out. He lowers a wooden plank into the dumpster. The raccoon promptly climbs the plank, jumps out, bites the man, and gives him rabies. Was there ever a scenario where trying to help a cornered raccoon ends well? 80. Only in Florida could the fix for a boring aquarium be a fish that can go for a walk. The walking catfish was imported, escaped, and now travels across land between ponds, invading new territories and devouring native fish. What would you even do if you looked out your window and saw a fish waddling across your lawn? 81. A small roof leak seems simple enough to fix. Many homeowners just slap some tar or caulk on it. But this patch quickly degrades in the sun, trapping water underneath and turning a small drip into a massive section of rotted wood that costs thousands to repair. Is a quick fix ever really a fix? Or is it just making a bigger problem for your future self? 82. To fix the problem of icy winter roads, America dumps over 20 million tons of salt on them every year. This effectively melts the ice, but it also systematically rusts our cars into dust, poisons our drinking water, and kills all roadside plant life. Is trading safe roads for crumbling bridges and toxic rivers a fair deal? 83. The rice trick for a wet phone is too slow for some people. They need a faster fix. This has led to the legend of the person who tries to dry their iPhone in the microwave, resulting in sparks, toxic smoke, and a completely destroyed $1,000 device. Has our need for instant gratification made us this stupid? 84. Wall Street felt our banking laws were too restrictive. Their fix was simple: get rid of them. This deregulation allowed banks to gamble with everyone's money, leading directly to the 2008 financial crisis, a global recession, and a massive taxpayer-funded bailout. How does it feel knowing the fix for the banks ended with you paying for their mess? 85. Got an ugly mold problem? The classic landlord fix isn't to remove it, it's to just paint over it. This temporarily hides the stain, but allows the fungus to continue thriving in the wall, eating away at your house and pumping spores into the air you breathe. What's the most blatant, let's just paint over it problem you've ever seen? 86. After a woman famously styled her hair with Gorilla Glue spray adhesive, her fix was to go to the emergency room. Before that, she spent a month with hair as solid as a combat helmet, becoming a living monument to not reading the warning label. What's the most inappropriate product you've ever used because the right one was too far away? 87. For decades, the fix for industrial pollution in Ohio was to just dump it into the Cuyahoga River. The river became so saturated with flammable chemicals that it literally caught fire more than a dozen times. How bad does a problem have to be before ignoring it is no longer considered a solution? 88. A man needed to get under his car, but a proper jack stand was too much to ask. His fix was a couple of cinder blocks and some rickety pieces of wood. He was halfway underneath when the whole setup crumbled. proving that gravity is a law you can't fix with wishful thinking. What's the most unstable thing you've ever trusted with your own safety? 89. Only America could invent a Christmas decoration that gives you cancer. To fix the lack of a white Christmas indoors, companies in the 1940s sold pure asbestos as artificial snow. It was fireproof, fluffy, and decorated millions of homes while silently poisoning the families inside. What seemingly innocent product we love today will be a horror story for our grandkids? 90. Some people think if one cleaning product is good, two must be better. Their fix for a tough bathroom stain often involves mixing bleach and ammonia. This doesn't create a super cleaner, it creates chloramine gas, a chemical weapon that can send you to the hospital. Have we all forgotten our high school chemistry lessons? 91. To cut crashes, cities installed red light cameras. Revenues soared, and so did rear-end collisions as drivers slammed brakes to avoid tickets. Angle crashes sometimes fell, but the overall mess got worse at many intersections. The safety fix behaved like a cash register with a lens and a fender bender factory. 92. A winter power outage made a house cold. The family's fix was to bring the charcoal grill inside for warmth. They were found unconscious hours later, victims of carbon monoxide poisoning, proving that the solution to being cold should never be a slow, silent death. What's the most obvious safety warning you've ever seen someone completely ignore? 93. Dull paint was a problem in the early 20th century. The fix was lead-based paint. It was durable, vibrant, and had a slightly sweet taste, which was a fun bonus for the kids who chewed on it, suffering irreversible brain damage as a result. How many miracle products we use now will turn out to be slowly killing us? 94. Your toast is stuck. The toaster is plugged in. The obvious 5-second fix for thousands of people every year is to jam a metal knife in there, turning a minor breakfast inconvenience into a hair-raising high-voltage dance with the Grim Reaper. What's the most dangerous thing you've done just to avoid a minor hassle? 95. In the 1960s, America declared a war on poverty. The fix was a massive expansion of welfare programs. But critics argue that many of these programs created dependency, broke down families, and trapped people in the very poverty they were meant to escape. Is it possible to fix a complex social problem by just throwing trillions of dollars at it? 96. To control grasshoppers, farmers in the 1930s laced bran with arsenic and spread it all over their fields. This fix killed the grasshoppers, but the arsenic also seeped into the soil, poisoned the water table, and killed livestock and wildlife for years to come. At what point do we admit that carpet bombing our own food supply with poison is a bad strategy? 97. In a desperate attempt to fix a stripped screw, people often try the rubber band trick. In reality, this works about 1% of the time, while the other 99% just leaves you with a shredded rubber band and an even more hopelessly stripped screw. What's your go-to life hack that has failed you more times than it's actually worked? 98. A car's air conditioning broke in the middle of a heat wave. The driver's immediate fix was to buy 2 giant bags of ice and dump them on the passenger seat and floor. He enjoyed about 10 minutes of cool air before it all melted, leaving him with a swampy, mildew-infested car for the rest of the summer. What's the most short-sighted fix you've ever attempted? 99. Lacking volunteers to test LSD, the CIA ran Operation Midnight Climax. Prostitutes lured men to agency-run apartments, where hidden mirrors watched as unwitting subjects were dosed. It sounds like bad fiction, but it happened, because the Cold War's fix for data collection treated consent and ethics as optional extras. 100. You get a deep scratch on your car. You're not going to pay for a real repair. The classic American fix is to find a Sharpie or nail polish that's close enough in color and just scribble over it. From 10 feet away, it might look okay, but up close it just looks like you let a toddler graffiti your car. What's the worst DIY repair job you've ever seen? 101. America needed electricity everywhere. The fix was to patch together thousands of small, local power grids into one giant, sprawling national grid. This patchwork system is now so old, fragile, and interconnected that a single falling tree branch in one state can cause a catastrophic blackout for millions of people 1,000 miles away. Is our entire country running on a fix that's just one dumb mistake away from total collapse? Let's be honest, America never stops fixing things, even when it really shouldn't. But which kind of disaster do you think is worse? The clueless ones or the calculated ones? Tell me below, and if this madness kept you watching, prove it. Hit that like, subscribe, and let's keep breaking down the world's dumbest solutions together.